Your money or your life? You're smarter than you look. Take it. It's worthless to me anyway.
The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered has been with us for a few days now, and I thought, you know what would be an absolutely splendid idea? A video exploring 10 of this rejuvenated classic's many, many secrets. Whether they be Easter eggs, cool loot you wouldn't think to look for, or just other fascinating bits and bats scattered across glorious Cyrodiil. Now, I did a video like this on the original version of Oblivion, and that seemed to be received reasonably well, and I thought it would be a great idea to touch base with that caliber of content on the remaster. Now, I've done my best to ensure the secrets shared here don't overlap too heavily with the ones shared in that video as such, with the exception of maybe one that's likely incredibly well known to people who have been playing Oblivion for years, but it's incredibly useful, so if you happen to be new to this game, then you might find this handy. But you know the drill, these 10 secrets will be timestamped accordingly, so in the event that you're looking for something specific this video happens to contain, you can find it. Or if you want to skip past the secrets that you heard of or you know about, then feel free. After all, why would I give you that convenience for you to not use it? Anyway, without further nonsense, please enjoy 10 secrets in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered. To begin with, we find ourselves within the city of Skingrad, where among the houses, one is noticeably different from the others, although at face value it may not seem that way. It's named Nerastarel's house, which is interesting as there's no character in this game called Nerastarel. The front door is secured with a difficult lock, but it's what's within that proves the most startling. Should you endeavour to gain entry, you'll find the house chock full of undead. Angry skeletons looking to pick skin from bone, a restless, violent ghost, and upstairs awaits a zombie, and as you can imagine, none of them are particularly happy to see you. It's fascinating these entities are present here and nobody in Skingrad seems to know about them. After all, the abode's facade fails to indicate its derelict status. As for whomever Nerastarel is meant to be, they're nowhere to be found. Unless Nerastarel's either one of the two skeletons we encounter, the zombie we slaughtered, or the vengeful spectre begging for the sweet release of silver. However, it would seem the prospect of Nerastarel being a practicing or formerly practicing necromancer is quite potent, and it's quite startling with the people of Skingrad a stone's throw away, none the wiser. Now, no explanation is ever given for why the house is in such a state, and no quest will ever bring us inside. In fact, entering this house is still considered trespassing, and every 24 hours, the undead bits and bats found within will respawn, so using it as a player home is almost certainly out the window. The only other real detail of note might very well be the dead tree in the backyard. Otherwise, how Skingrad's House of Horrors came to be remains a mystery. It's likely cut content, with only so much left behind as to be an interesting casual discovery. But there are only so many plausible explanations before you find yourself perplexed as to why the undead are choosing domestic life. However, at least we know somebody in Skingrad who will be pleased. For our second secret, we're venturing to the city of Shadenhall, where you might find the Dunmageezer singing about cliff races, but ignore him. For our interest must turn to a manor house named Riverview. For if you manage to break in on an evening on the weekend, you may come to notice that various Shadenhall residents will gather within for a bit of a party, and a couple of them are Mythic Dawn cultists, but oh dear. These lavish, exclusive functions are put together by a fellow named Veranal, and as you can imagine, no matter how special we are, nor what we do, we will never be invited. However, because we're trespassing, if we do choose to linger, Veranal will eventually become aggressive. So do yourself a favour and raise your disposition with a few of the characters present at these functions, so that when Veranal goes inevitably postal, you can sit back and watch his exquisite party turn into a bloodbath. Our next secret would appear to be entirely an addition of the remaster, for if we venture out to this particular point along Cyrodiil's border with Skyrim, if we gain enough altitude, we'll be able to observe a very familiar sight. I am, of course, talking about Tamriel's highest peak, the Throat of the World. Home, of course, to High Hrothgar and the Greybeards, but most importantly, everybody's favourite friendly dragon, Paarthurnax. He's almost certainly up there chilling as you observe it. He may not physically be there, but canonically he's up there waiting, and he's got another 200 years. So spare a thought for the guy by coming up here and observing the Throat of the World for yourselves, before returning your sights to Cyrodiil. because our adventure here is only just beginning. Our next secret relies on console commands and is therefore only really accessible to people on PC. Furthermore, I advise if you're going to use console commands, please bear in mind they may disable achievements unless you install a mod that counteracts that particular spell. But the command we're going to enter is COC TODDTEST. Doing so will transport us to a random looking house within which there is an NPC known as Alban Carinus. And while he has some generic dialogue, should you select any of the dialogue options presented to us, his voice will be that of Todd Howard.
Fabulous! That's great. Good for you. Oh no! What do we do? I'm so scared!
What? That really pisses me off.
What next, friend? I'm sorry. I didn't know. When? I didn't know that. How can this be?
And if that's not amusing enough, there's some other odd bits in here, for instance all 4 Mythic Dawn commentaries, some weapons, some gold, a barrel simply named Todd's Barrel of Fun, that is of course absolutely crammed with goodies including an unnamed book and some armour. There's also a test scroll that appears to be full of nonsense, a couple other NPCs named Women 65 and Women 45, and there's an outside area with a character named Linda Carter, and a rather passive troll, or at least he was until I attacked him. And, all things considered, it's just an interesting test area. But back to things that can actually be found without using a debug console to cheese your way to them. For our next secret, we need to head to Coral, where after the Kvatch debacle, an Oblivion gate will open. And if you'd fancy some sick weaponry, we're going to have to venture within. This gate, like all the others, will take us to Oblivion of course, but this particular region is quite crowded, at least with towers. Upon immediately entering the Oblivion Gate, you will be met with this intimidating sight, and that lets you know you're in the right place. Behind the Oblivion Gate, however, we can find this slanted tower, with no apparent point of access. But should you venture out across some molten rock, to a far point behind this tower behind the Oblivion Gate, you will eventually find a fittingly angled doorway, and this leads to what's known as the Fume Vaults. Once inside, you'll need to make your way through these tunnels, fending off some pesky creatures, until you soon find a doorway to the Embers of Hatred. This will grant us access to the toppled tower, where our objective becomes to work our way up, until we eventually come to the summit where we will find 2 fleshy pods, known as the Forbidden. Within one we'll find a bow called Hatred's Soul, as well as some arrows called Hatred's Soul Arrows. In the other we'll find a mace named Hatred's Heart. The mace deals fire damage and drains speed, and the bow, as far as things appear, has the exact same effect. Now interestingly, the bow when combined with Hatred's Soul Arrows can inflict the most base damage in the game, according to my research. So, in return for a quick plunge into literal hell, you will come away with the distinct ability to send others there. If your aim's any good. Which of course the bow cannot cure if it's not. Although there is an aim assist option in Oblivion Remastered, so if you have to use it, use it. Now this next one is the one that I included in my previous Oblivion Secrets video a few years back, but it's quite worthwhile to obtain, so I'm going to recover it. If we head to this dinky isle to the west of Anvil, and don't mind taking a plunge westward into the waters, if you follow the deepening sea floor, you will eventually come across a skeleton. And in this skeleton's possession is a useful helmet named Gleam. And what this does is, in exchange for looking a bit stupid, grants you water breathing, night eye, and detect life. So should you need to see in the dark or be submerged in water for a prolonged period, this is the bucket for you. Now let's turn our minds to this spot to the north of Skingrad, for it's out here in the beautiful woodlands, nearby to another Oblivion Gate. Please do your best to ignore that. We will find a location called Goblin Jim's Cave. Within we'll find a tribe called the White Skin Goblins, and as we fight our way through we'll have one burning question on our minds. Who on earth is Goblin Jim? Is he the chief goblin, or is he a bloke named Jim who likes goblins? And of course at the back end of this particular cave full of goblins, we'll get the answer when we inevitably come face to face with a Breton named Goblin Jim. He will be aggressive, so you'll have to kill him, and all his goblin friends, of which there are most certainly a lot. He won't drop any loot of particular note, but it would appear this goblin tribe had something of a human shaman. But worry not, this tribe now has nothing because I've wiped them out, and pillaged the pantry of bevies and rat meat. For our 8th secret of the day, if we venture to the west of Kvatch to the edge of the map, we can find an unmarked shipwreck. There's nothing major about it, no real loot to be gained, it's just cool. It sits here abandoned, alone, away from any signs of civilization, just stranded here. And I've got to be honest, I quite like these types of discoveries. It's an untold story, but it implies there was one. Now, for our 9th secret, if we head to the east of Shadenhall, we will find Fort Cinia. It's crammed with inhospitable bandits whom we'll have to kill, but as we venture through this fort, we may, in between bouts of slaughtering hapless brigands, find a particularly named skeleton. The skeleton is called Gran Struthe, and he contains a key to the crypt on his body, but it's his name that is interesting here. It appears to be a reference to Bethesda Game Studios' special effects artist, Gran Struthe, an in-joke of some description perhaps. Our final secret of the day requires us to find a beggar. Any will do, though there's one typically found loitering around the Imperial City waterfront. Should we give beggars some gold? When we leave dialogue, they may say the following.
Blessings of Mystara upon you.
This is an interesting thing to say because Mystara is not a deity in the Elder Scrolls universe, to our knowledge, but it is a campaign setting for Dungeons and Dragons, so the working theory is it's a bit of an Easter egg. But that brings us cosily to the end of today's video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, share the channel with your friends, all that wonderful stuff. It would be massively appreciated. And be sure to let me know any suggestions for things to cover in a prospective part 2 to this video in the comments section. I do read them. I do intend to do some videos covering Oblivion's mysteries and lore-related stuff in the near future, so if you have any suggestions for that as well, feel free to let me know. As things stand, I have 2 or 3 ideas, but it's always great to get some input as to what people would like to specifically see. But with all bases adequately covered, all that's left to say is hopefully I'll be seeing you all very soon with another video at some point, but until next time, please take care and goodbye.